Long Live Free Cuba, Hip Hop and Free Expression in Modern Cuba.
Okay, so any history majors in here looking to find an easy topic, I would completely avoid Cuba because it's the most complicated topic that I've ever seen, and I hopefully can demonstrate a little bit of that here. We have this perception of Cuba as a North Korean-like totalitarian state where a harsh dictator is in control and oppresses his people, that in a place where speech is not free, criticism is punished by imprisonment, and in Cuba you're also not allowed to identify as anything other than Cuban. The opposite end of the spectrum, hip-hop is a music that is also very harsh, very critical, and artists often express notion of black power, of sticking it to the man, and such. So if we accept these descriptions of hip-hop and Cuba, hip-hop should not have worked in Cuba, but it did. And it did so in a way that can change the way we think about Cuba, but also the way that Cubans think of themselves. Disclaimer, hip-hop was no less critical in Cuba than it is in the U.S. I have a couple lines from the most famous group in Cuba, they're titled Los Aldeanos, and this song is Abajo Todos los Presidentes, which is down with all the presidents, which calls for a removal with all of the presidents in the world to oppress their people, and they do not leave Castro out. So it goes, this is translated obviously, enough oppression, enough false promises, enough corruption, enough massive silence of the press, enough of critical poverty, peace, love, and liberty, and four-letter word starts with F, politics. So my thesis, I look at the relationship between the growing popularity of hip-hop in Cuba and the gradual expansion of artistic freedom in the country. I argue that artists use hip-hop to push the boundaries of free expression and open up debates on topics that were previously closed. In this, just relating it back to, but also a medium to direct criticism towards the governments on how they approach these closed topics or just topics in general. Here, relating it to identity, I hope to explain how this process of pushing the boundaries of free expression allowed Cuban rappers to revive the ideas of the revolution, thereby shaping identity in Cuba. So, reviving the ideas of the revolution. Hip-hop became popular in a time in Cuba where the revolution was significantly losing popularity. The fall of the Soviet Union had huge economic impacts on Cuba, a huge economic crisis as Soviet-era subsidies ceased to exist almost overnight, and I think it's like 75% of Cuba's export market was the Soviet Union, and that all just went away. This obviously caused some tension on the island, and it exposed some of the problems that had been plaguing Cuba for a long time, such as deeply held racial microaggressions and discrepancies in what the government was saying versus what people were actually seeing. But it also reemerged problems that it showed problems that came in with the introduction of tourism, such as prostitution, the black market, and segregated Havana, where tourists can go here, but Cubans can't go here. This situation gave rappers inspiration. They were able to bring light to these issues and give a voice to Cubans who felt that their voice was not, or their experiences were being invalidated by the government, who were basically saying, what you're saying is not even true. So in an attempt to retain support of the people as well as satisfy the requests of foreigners held in high regards by the Cuban government, bit by bit the state expanded freedom of expression and allowed and even supported hip hop financially and with other support, along with its criticism. So race was not the only issue taken on by Cuban hip hop, and not all rappers were talking about race. But the way in which the genre took on the subject of race can help us see how rappers took on identity. The Cuban government up until 1997 was saying that the revolution had solved the problem of racism, and with its anti-revolution or with its anti-racism campaigns. Yet dark-skinned Cubans had a harder time finding jobs in the tourism industry, which is one of the few places you could make a living in Cuba, and are more likely to be harassed by police and get kicked out of segregated parts of the city. Rappers gave voice to these issues. They took on Black history, promoting figures like Malcolm X and Nelson Mandela when it was still cliche to talk about race. They talked about beauty and dark skin in a society that considered it less pure than white skin. And they directly called out the falsehoods in government rhetoric, which said that there is no racism in Cuba and that we are all equal, by sharing their own experiences and the experiences of people that they live with. And most importantly, they were able to identify as Black or mixed race or more than just Cuban through hip hop. Race is one discrepancy of many that Cuban hip hop took on, and it didn't solve the issue of race. There is still racism in Cuba, no matter what the government says. And it wasn't the only issue. It's not the only place that racism is talked about, but it was a driving force in confronting these issues that allowed Cubans to critically reflect on the country they lived in, what the government was telling them, and how they viewed themselves.